Welcome to the StoryADay podcast. This is Julie Duffy from StoryADay.org, encouraging you to be a writer every day, not someday. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Julie here from the StoryADay podcast, and today we are working our way towards StoryADay May. It's March now, but believe me, there's some preparation that has to take place to get yourself in the right state of mind to concentrate on your writing. So this week I wanted to start by talking about top 10 mistakes that writers make. See if any of these sound familiar to you. First of all, number one, not working on mindset every day. I know it seems like we have all these ideas and we should just be able to sit and write, but it turns out that putting together worlds and populating them with realistic, believable people and feeling like we have the right to do that and that there's any point in us spending all these hours alone in our room because who's going to read them in it? All of this stuff adds up, and the only way that you're ever going to get to the end of the book is by believing it's possible. And we have to work on mindset every day. It's why Julia Cameron recommends doing morning pages before you work. It's why people write affirmations. It's why people turn up in groups, because sometimes you need to believe that a thing is possible before you can get it done. Have you ever had that thing where you wonder if you have peanut butter in the cupboard or any chocolates or something healthier in the cupboard, and then you go looking for it and you're like, I don't think we have any, so you can't find it. When somebody says to you, no, I put some in there yesterday, you go back and you find it because you believed it was possible that there was that thing in your cupboard. And the same thing happens for writing. People who want to achieve things need to convince themselves that it's possible. We are no exceptions. We can't just sit down and write. We need to work on believing that it's possible for people like us to be writers every day. Number two mistake that people make: not defining success for themselves. Published is great, successful, sure. Bestseller, awesome, who doesn't want that? But you are not going to get those kinds of successes every day. We need to focus on other definitions of success. Writing so that we feel better, writing so that we feel more like ourselves, getting to the desk, finishing a chapter, writing anything. These are all parts of a successful writing life. And we need to guard against accepting definitions of success in writing that other people who don't even do it impose upon us. Don't let people asking about when's your bestseller coming out derail you. That's not your definition of success. It might be one of your definitions, it might be part of your definition of a writing life that is successful, but if you don't know what you are aiming for, how are you ever going to hit that target? Define success for yourself. Number three mistake that writers make: trying to go it alone. Number three mistake that writers make. The number three mistake that writers make is trying to go it alone. Yes, we all write alone in our bedrooms, we all write alone in our offices, we all write alone on trains, wherever we can get a moment's peace. But trying to do it all alone, including that mindset piece, is a recipe for disaster. Nobody really succeeds alone. From the writing part, where you get together with people and write in silence together just to make sure you're actually getting some work done, to the pieces where you say to someone, I will send you pages at the end of the week to prove that I've done it, to the parts where you join a critique group and someone points out a plot hole, or they tell you a thing that unlocks an idea that makes it clear to you what your story was trying to be in the first place. That's a wonderful time not to be alone. When you're publishing, when you're releasing your work into the world, you need allies, you need a team, you need a gang of people who are going to tell the world about your story, because it's always great when you hear a recommendation from someone other than the author. That's why there are these professional sort of cooperatives of authors who pledge to promote each other's work. Yes, because they're fans, but also because they know the power of doing the work for each other and with each other and having that support group. There's a group of 3 authors going around the Northeast this week Chuck Wendig, Kevin Hearn and Delilah S. Dawson, they're doing a little book tour together. There's a group of women writers called the Tall Poppies who commit to talking about each other's work on their release date and around the release date of those works, because they know that everybody needs a little support, everybody needs a little help. So don't go it alone. Mistake 4 that writers make, and this one might surprise you, is when writers try to write a story starting at the beginning and going to the end. You don't have to do that. And frequently we can't write the beginning until we've written the end and found out what the story wanted to be. And I frequently can't write the middle until I've skipped ahead to the end and figured out what I need to build towards. So what pieces need to be in the middle to get me to that glorious end that I have envisaged. Usually that doesn't happen at the beginning. I don't usually know the end when I start, but there are times when you really need to write out of sequence to make it faster, to know where you're going. You wouldn't try and go on a car trip without knowing your destination. We don't have to know everything about our destination with writing, but we also don't need to write. We don't need to discover as we go. We don't need to be drawing the map as we go. You can look ahead, and then you can write that part, and then you can find out how you got there, and you can expand. Nothing has to be written chronologically. You can write in any order. Mistake 5 that writers make is trying to make it good. Especially on a first draft, don't try and make it good. Don't try and make it bad, but don't try and make it good. Just try and tell the story. Tell the story to yourself, figure out where it's going, get that destination in mind, and then once that is done, you can make it pretty. I went back to a story that I'd been writing last year, and I was looking at it, I'm like, oh, this grammar, I would never want to read it this way, but that was the way it came out of me. And there was lots of stuff that I edited, and I changed the tense, and I cut this because I'd repeated myself. If I had worried about all of that stuff, the first draft would never have been written, and I wouldn't have got to tweak it and see how it could be better now. So don't try and make it good on the first pass. You're just going to stall yourself. Mistake 6 that people make is showing their work to people too soon. Sometimes we need to keep our work to ourselves, because if you get too much feedback on your work before you really know what it is, that can derail you and lead you off down paths that don't excite you. Try and remember what excited you about the initial idea in your story and write it, a whole draft of it, before you share too much with someone else. 7, the mistake that people make is showing their work to the wrong people. Mistake number 7 that people make is showing their work to the wrong people. You've got to be really careful about who you show your work to and what kind of response you ask for. If you show it to people in your family, they'll either say, I liked it or I didn't like it, unless they are also writers. If you show it to a writer who is much further ahead in their career than you, unless they are extremely sensitive, they might give you completely the wrong advice. And when I say career, I just mean writing journey. I don't mean that they're professional. I just mean somebody who's been going to writers groups and critique groups and has been, working on this for a long time. They might be kind of impatient with beginnery mistakes, and they might be very dismissive of what you've written because they've forgotten that they had to learn that stuff too. Or if you are that writer who's quite far along and you give it to a more beginner writer, they might not have anything for you, and you'll feel like, well, that was a waste of my time. So make sure that you show work to people you trust, people who understand what you're trying to do, people who understand what stage you're in, and people who are kind, but not too kind. You don't want anyone, to tell you that this is wonderful when it's not. You want people to ask you questions. So don't show your stuff to the wrong people. Mistake number 8, trying to write to fit a mold. This can be anything from trying to write commercial bestsellers when really what you love to write are quirky little stories that you're not quite sure who the audience is, to trying to write very elegant literary prose that will win prizes, when really what you write are pot-boiling thrillers that would have a huge commercial audience if you could just relax and let yourself write the thing that comes naturally to you. There's a lot of snobbery in the writing world, but if you're writing one of those genres that's typically looked down on, romance, mystery, airport thrillers, don't let anyone's snobbery stop you from writing what you want to write. Everybody needs all kinds of writings at different times in their life. Sometimes I'm reaching for literature. Sometimes I just want a fun read that is going to be bubblegum and I don't need to concentrate too hard because there's other hard stuff happening in my life and I need uplifted. And sometimes the beautiful literary work uplifts me too. So don't think that there is a one way that you should be writing. You got to play and you got to make your own mold, because the writers that we love are the ones who are unique. They are writing not necessarily experimental stuff that we can't relate to, but there's something about them. They are writing what only they can write. So if you have any kind of weirdness about you, lean into that. Write your stories the way you want to write them and shut out any preconceived ideas about what it's supposed to be or who it's supposed to be for until you're happy with it. Mistake number 9 that writers make: rushing. I don't just mean rushing drafts. Obviously, I run the StoryADay May challenge, where I'm always encouraging you to write as fast as you can to get ahead of your inner editor. But the thing I'm talking about here is being impatient with yourself and saying, I have to get the story finished by the end of the week. I have to get my first publication by the end of the year. I have to get my book finished by Christmas. I have to get an agent by this time next year. There are lots of things that just take a lot longer than we expect them to. I don't want you to slow down so much that you're not going anywhere, but that impatience to move on to the next stage in writing is often A, unrealistic, and B, counterproductive, because you're not taking time to learn the lessons of where you are now. If you have expectations of, I need to finish my book by the end of the year, you're not taking into account the fact that you also still need to go to the dentist, and you also still will have days where you just want to sit on your deck and listen to the birds sing. And you will have days where somebody calls you up and says, let's go for coffee or let's play with the grandkids. And you're going to want to do those things. And you're going to have days where your story doesn't come and the words won't come out of your fingers, but it's still noodling around in your head. And 2 days later, when you come back, whoosh, all the words come out. The creative process is a craft. Yes, you should turn up for your writing frequently, but sometimes it's going to come in unexpected ways. And if you don't have any slack built into your expectations for where you're going to be, then you're setting yourself up for disappointment in ways that aren't helpful. You can be ambitious about your writing, but be realistic about your timelines, because this is something you're going to be doing forever. Is it really, really important for you to get there next week? The number 10 mistake that writers make is saving their best ideas until later. We've all done it. We all think that we've got this fantastic idea that we've been saving since we were 17 years old and we just want to get good enough to do it justice. Don't do that. Your best idea is the one you're most excited about right now. And the way you get more ideas is by using up the old ones. I promise you that whenever you use an idea, it will multiply. Ideas are like tribbles. They're born pregnant. They just multiply. And the more creative you are, the more you use your creativity, the more you get. The more ideas you use up, the more you get. And frankly, that idea you had when you're 17, if you're 47 now, it's not going to be that compelling to you anymore. And the only way that you're going to learn how to do and tell those more ambitious stories is by writing stories. So just keep writing, keep using up your ideas. You can circle back round to them and recycle them, that's fine. It's never wasted. So don't be afraid to use your best ideas, just write them now. I have 3 bonus mistakes for you. I did a top 10, now I'm giving you my 3 bonus mistakes that writers make. Mistake 11, thinking that you can't write in short moments of time. You need to go away for 2 weeks and be on an island. You need to have an hour to get your thoughts together and write. Those things are great, but realistically, you can write in small, stolen snatches of time. I know people who are mothers of 4 tiny children who sneak off for 15 minutes here and 15 minutes there and add to an ongoing story, and it keeps them connected to who they are. There was a story about a writer who was picked up at an airport going to a conference, and the conference volunteer thought that they were going to have this great time in the car with the author, and the author was like, "I'm sorry, I'm on deadline. I'm going to be writing. You drive." They thought the writer was being rude and they were really disappointed, which I sympathize with. But writers write, and we write when we can, not when everything is perfect. So don't think that you can't write in small snatches of time. Probably you can't do massive deep thinking, plotting and creating and world building big ideas and trying to hold all threads together in your head in a short amount of time. But if you've got to work on the go and you've got a scene you need to write and you've got 15 minutes free, then you can write in 15 minutes. Mistake number 12 that writers make is thinking that they need to figure out what the best tools are before they can get started. Should I be using a fountain pen? Should I be using Scrivener? Do I need to buy a subscription to whatever new writing tool is available? Should I have my website ready before I start writing? You don't need anything. For most of human history, stories were either oral, or they were scratched onto parchment with feathers dipped in ink, or they were handwritten, or they were typed on manual typewriters. We are so spoiled with our word processors and our delete keys. You can write a novel in Scrivener or Vellum or one of these fancy writing programs, or you can write your stories in Word or Google Docs. People have written novels on their phones, typing with their thumbs. Wattpad is full of them. You can write a novel by dictating it. You can write your memoir by talking to someone and having them transcribe it. There are so many ways to write. You don't need to find the perfect tool, and no one can tell you what the perfect tool is, because the perfect tool is the one which creates the least distance between your ideas and your writing. Just start, try a bunch of stuff. If you don't like typing, try writing with a fountain pen. If you don't like the fountain pen, try writing with a felt tip. If you don't like that, try dictating into your phone. Try whatever you need to get the stories out of your heart into the world, and that is the right tool for you. Mistake number 13 that writers make is thinking that they need that one little piece more knowledge before they can get writing. Maybe if I take that class, maybe if I watch that interview with that author, maybe if I go to this conference, I'll be able to start. It'll unlock the thing I need to go into my writing life the way that I need it. You don't need more knowledge. You need to start writing. And I know that sounds simple and simplistic, but you are going to learn what you need to know by doing the work. If you get stuck, go and find the answer. Google it. Find a class. Take the class, come back and implement. But don't wait for that one more piece of knowledge. Don't think that an MFA is going to get you where you need to go. You need to teach yourself how to write, and you can find the knowledge to plug the gaps. You can do that in an MFA program, or you can do it at a workshop or a conference or in a group. But first and foremost, you need to believe that you don't need more knowledge. You just need to start writing and making mistakes and going down dead ends and cleaning it up and entertaining yourself and figuring out what you don't know yet and how to fix it. And then it will make sense to go and find the knowledge that you lack. Don't think you need more. You don't. You don't need more information. You need more practice. All of us need more practice. So there are 13 mistakes that writers make that I've gleaned from my 2 decades working with writers and 4.5 decades of being one. Since I've been focused on this work for the past 12 years, trying to get better as a writer, trying to get a better writing practice in place, and working with other writers who are trying to do the same thing, it's clearer to me mistakes that writers make, not because they are character flaws, but because they're just mistakes that creative people make. They're just things that happen to all of us. And they're things that what we might term successful writers have learned to live with, counteract, have strategies against. Don't think that you're special. You are special and you're unique, and only you have the stories that you can tell. But in this respect, you are not specially flawed. We all make these mistakes. We all need to find ways around them. Hopefully this list has helped highlight a few that are holding you back and allowed you to go, oh yeah, I can stop worrying about that one now because Julie's told me that it's just a mistake everyone makes and people get over it, and I can get over it too. That's what this podcast has been about today. And I want to invite you, if you are looking for a way to get this kind of affirmation from other writers often so that you don't walk away from your writing and not come back thinking that you are somehow specially flawed. If you'd like to be hanging out with other writers, if you'd like to have times on your calendar set aside for writing, if you'd like to have people who will hold you accountable, if you'd like to come to some workshops to plug those holes in your knowledge, and if you want to influence what workshops get brought in to the StoryADay world, do consider joining us in the StoryADay Superstars group. The Superstars group isn't a course, it's a year-long experience where I try and help you focus. I try and take away distractions, things that are pulling you away from your writing life. But it's not something where I'm going to tell you what you have to do and I'm going to distract you with too many lessons, too much knowledge. It's all about showing up for your writing, showing up and supporting other writers, forming that peer group that's going to power you on bad days, and being that peer group for people when you're having a good day and you can pull someone else up. It's a year-long program because it's very important to me to show you what your life is like over all of the seasons, and for you to experience the ebbs and flows of the writing and the creativity in your life, to understand that writing is not just about these challenges where we write a lot for 31 days. Being a writer is about having those moments when we're writing a lot and knowing what to do with the times in between, when you need to recover and you need to live and gather more experiences, and when you need to revise, and when you need to think about the next step for you specifically in your writing journey. That's all part of what's in the Superstars. There's writing sprints. We have a community on Slack where we give each other support and hold each other accountable. We have occasional workshops and hangouts that you can turn up for or not if they don't appeal to you right now. Everything's archived, so you can revisit things when it suits you. And we also have our critique week, which we do 3 times a year, which has been a fantastic experience for helping authors more than find mistakes in their stories, find the possibilities in their stories and see where they're working, which is really exciting. And several of those stories have gone on to be revised and they've been published, or they've led to longer work. So it's very exciting to see that happening in the group. And I do occasionally open up that critique group to members of the wider StoryADay community, but usually it just fills up so fast that it's only superstars in there. So it may be your only way to get that kind of feedback is by joining us in superstars. But more than that, I would love to see you take a year this year to have that transformative experience of treating yourself like a writer through all the seasons and seeing what happens. The doors are open right now and they close on March the 21st and won't open again until later in the year after the StoryADay challenge is over, time in the summer that I'm going to open up the group again. But if this is still the beginning of the year, right? We're still in the first quarter of the year. And if you really want to make this year kick off properly, I love to see you join us in Superstars. If you have questions, you can email me, julie@storyaday.org, and I will get back to you. I'm going to be talking about this a little bit, but we are just open for this one weekend right now. I hope you'll consider joining in. You can come. There's a link in the show notes where you can come and find out more about the group, listen to me talk about it some more. I'm not going to belabor the point. If it's right for you, I think you'll know. If it's not for you just now, that's fine too. I hope it will be at some point in the future because I just see people blossom when they give themselves the gift of paying attention to the writer inside who needs to find a way out. Anyway, that's what I have for you this week. I hope it was helpful and I will see you again soon. Keep writing and let me know if you have any questions. Thanks for listening. Why not come over to the blog at storyaday.org and check out this week's writing prompts and articles. And in the meantime, have a great creative week and of course, keep writing.